Okay, let's wrap this up. So again, in the last scene of this, remember, this is something Shakespeare does in his comedies. You see, he separates all the characters, and then they all get together on the stage at the same time at the end and realize all the crazy shit that's happened. So everybody's getting together, and Ariel shows up with Stefano and Trinculo, who were going to kill Prospero, and Ariel's like a giant monster chasing them around and freaking them out, and they're terrified. But it is an interesting moment um, when Sebastian and Alonso, right? This is the king's brother who was going to kill the king, and Prospero's brother who was going to help him kill the king. These are assholes. Um, they, as soon as they see Caliban, this is the first time. This is the end of the play. We're on page 21, but this is the first time they see Caliban, and when they see him, they have a very typical reaction. Sebastian says they don't know what it is. They never seen a monster like that before. What things are these, my lord Antonio? Will money buy 'em? Well, very like. One of them is very plain fish and no doubt marketable. They both talk about how they could sell Caliban for money because they're fucking assholes. And this is how invaders and colonizers see native people as something to sell. So Trinculo and Stefano are idiots, but they're thinking the exact same way that some of the most important people in the country are thinking. The king's brother and Prospero's brother are like, shit, could we sell this guy? Um, So they talk about they talk about he was going to kill me, and then Prospero says this very interesting line: two of these fellows you must know and own, meaning Trinculo and Stefano belong to the king, but Caliban, he says, this thing of darkness, I acknowledge mine. It's a very complicated line. This thing of darkness, I acknowledge mine. Darkness here means ignorance, because Caliban is very evil, but it's because of ignorance. It's because he's stupid. It's because he hasn't seen enough and understood enough and learned enough, I think. This thing of darkness, I acknowledge mine. And it's a strange phrase that can mean a lot of different things. It could mean this dark, evil creature, because darkness can mean evil or stupidity. So he said, or it could mean dark skin, like native people. So he says, this thing of darkness, I acknowledge mine. Could mean these guys are your servants, this guy's my slave. But to acknowledge mine is to also say it could mean um, this creature Caliban, who's a bad person, it's my fault. I'm the one that raised him. I'm the one that taught him language. I should, the fact that he's a bad guy may be my fault. I don't know what he means there. An actor would have to decide how to say that line. But this thing of darkness, I acknowledge mine, um, could be this is property that I own, or it could be he's my fault. I didn't educate him well enough. I didn't help him. I turned my back on him. Again, remember when he tried to rape Miranda, Prosper didn't forgive him. He punished him repeatedly. People that get punished repeatedly often turn into bad folks. So that's what he says. It's a neat line in the play. And Caliban's worried about being tortured. And these guys all find each other again, and they're all very excited. Okay. And then Prospero, and then everybody starts to kind of head out. Um, but Caliban says, "Go to my cell," meaning go to my home. Take with you your companions, as you look to have pardon, trim it handsomely. And he says, go get my stuff. But Caliban says, interestingly here, he says, "I will, and I'll be wise hereafter, and sue for grace. I shall be wise hereafter, and sue for grace." Meaning, I'm going to be smarter than I used to be. Caliban says. And I will sue for grace, meaning I'm going to try to get forgiveness for what I've done. It's a neat moment in the play, um, because it seems like Caliban, who's had some trouble learning, um, has learned something. He's embarrassed that he thought Trinculo and Stefano were gods. And I think it's possible that he's realized something about how he shouldn't be following people. Like, the people he follows are just terrible human beings. He needs to kind of find his own way. Now, one of the interesting details in the play is everybody leaves the island to go back to Italy. Right? Prospero drowns his book and breaks his staff, and everybody in the Ferdinand and Miranda are going to get married, and it's really nice. And Prospero's ready to go back. Shakespeare does not tell you what happens to Caliban. Does he go back with them? Does he stay on the island by himself? We don't know. Now, in the movie version, Prospero and uh, Caliban have one last look at each other, and then he just kind of leaves. And I think in that version, he does not go back with them. He stays on the island. Directors and actors have to decide what happens next, and you have to decide what happens next there, because Shakespeare doesn't tell you. Maybe Caliban is alone on the island after everybody leaves. Caliban might be happier like that, not having anyone. He's king of the island now. He's the only guy there, but he's king of the island, and there's something kind of lovely about it. Okay, cool. Um, there's another odd detail in the very final moment of the play. Oh, and the other thing that happens is Prospero releases Ariel. Remember, Ariel, he promised to let Ariel go when all this was over, and Prospero does let Ariel go. And Ariel flies away and he's free. In the movie version, Ariel's like, yeah, I'm free. But there was a production years ago that was very controversial. When Prospero lets Ariel go, Ariel spits on Prospero and walks off. Again, Ariel's nicer than Caliban, but he's still a slave, and it doesn't seem like a great life for him. So it's kind of interesting. The actor made a really dramatic choice to spit on Prospero, and say, fuck you for keeping me in slavery for 12 fucking years or however many years it was. So the play has I've given you two different interpretations of the play. One in which Prospero's a really nice, sweet guy who's like Shakespeare saying goodbye to all his actors, and the other one where Prospero's an insane, power-hungry lunatic who is tricking everybody. But it's up to actors and directors and you to decide what you think about this. This is why it's a nice way to end class, because it's not about me telling you what the play is about. It's about you noticing options and then thinking about which way you would do it if you were going to be an actor, or how you're going to think about it when you read it. The literature, Shakespeare has a space for you, the audience, to kind of think about this. And it doesn't have to be the same as the guy sitting next to you. There's options here. And then there's one more little funny line on the way out of the story. Again, this is like the last page. We're just about finished. And Prospero says this very odd thing. Go to Naples, we'll have your nuptial out of these dear beloved solemnized. So this is the wedding of the two of them. And then Prospero says, I'll deliver all, meaning I'll tell you the story on the way back to Italy, and promise you calm seas, auspicious gales, and sails so expeditious that shall catch the royal fleet. He says, I'll tell you my story of all the crazy things that happen on the island when we're sailing back to Italy. And he says, I promise we're going to have great weather. How the fuck would he know that? Didn't he drown his book in the ocean? Didn't he break his staff? Didn't he renounce magic? But now he's promising them good weather on the trip back. Now, this play opened with bad weather, terrible weather, big storm, the tempest. Tempest means storm. It's a big storm at the beginning, and it ends with nice weather. Well, the terrible weather at the beginning of the play was a storm that was created by Prospero. He claims to have gotten rid of his book and his staff. But did he really? Because now he's like, oh, I promise we're going to have great weather on the way home. Dude, is that because you have not given up magic? Is that because you are still an addict to magic? That you're going to make sure the trip home was awesome? And look at what he's done for himself. He's going to be the father to the next queen of Italy. He has blackmail material on the people closest to the king, and I think he didn't really get rid of his wizard shit, and he's like an all-powerful wizard. So what's really fascinating here, and what I want to point out to you guys is that, Iago is evil, but he tricks Othello into thinking he's good, right? For most of the play. What Shakespeare's done here is something more complicated. Prospero, I think, I like Prospero. He seems like a cool guy, but it also seems like he's tricked the audience into thinking he's a cool guy. He actually might be sneakier and better than Iago. Just like Iago, he controls all the events. And just like Iago, people think he's good, but better than Iago, the audience watching the play thinks Prospero's a nice, sweet old man. But Prospero might be just massively consolidating power, because Prospero is a sneaky, slave-holding guy who has an incredible amount of power over all of these people in the play. And guys, we're done. That was The Tempest. And I'll be back with a video about doing research later, but thanks for watching. That is the last thing we're studying in the class. So you made it to the end. Good job.